everyone, welcome back to my channel. I have something special for you because today's video is going to be a DDrives. I know I haven't done one in a while. The last one I did was a year ago, but I'm pretty excited for today because I'll be driving a 2019 McLaren 720S. So this isn't the first time that I've driven a McLaren. I've driven a 570S as well. That was 2 years ago. I tried to film a DDrives on that, but it just didn't end up working out because that was back in Vegas and there was just way too much traffic. But getting back to the 720S, this isn't the first time driving this car. I've driven it a few times because I did install a simple yet somewhat complicated modification to it. So it may not look modified, but it is. I installed a full Army Trick system, including catless downpipes, but Corey decided to keep the stock tips just to retain that factory look. So that's why if you see it, it doesn't seem like it unless you hear it, and it sounds pretty good. Now, this may seem like a very simple installation for almost any car except this one. So like I was saying, this installation seems pretty basic for almost every other car except this one, because you have to take apart the entire rear section for the exception of the rear bumper. This took me 2 full days just to install the downpipes as well as the exhaust. So this is just something that I'm glad I did. I'm glad I got the experience, but I would never do it again for one simple reason. This panel right here, just this one panel, costs $15,000. That's pretty much the cost of a fully built GT350 engine. So I'd rather take apart my Shelby GT350 engine any day over doing this again. This is one of those check off your bucket list, once in a lifetime experience. So as I drive, you guys will get to hear all of my hard work done on this car, and I'll just talk about how the car feels, the handling, the performance, the suspension. So enough talking, let's get driving. Alright, it's time for the fun to start, and let me warn you, there's only 2 cars in my entire life up to date that have scared me. The first one is the 900 wheel horsepower GTR. The second one is this one. So I'm going to do a rolling launch. So I'm just going to ease into it and then go full throttle. The suspension right now is in comfort and the transmission is in sport, so it'll shift by itself. All right, my heart was beating so fast there, but it's worth it. Completely worth it to feel scared but excited at the same time whenever you drive this car like that. So continuing with the fun, let's do one more pull. Let's do a 40 roll in second gear. It completely feels like a slingshot. Honestly, that was a bit more frightening than the rolling launch. I just completely felt it in my stomach. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about suspension. This car right now, it's in comfort. So suspension is in comfort and it feels pretty comfortable. Like I feel like right now you can make a long road trip with this without complaining. Okay, so let's change it to sport. Okay, so now I'm feeling a bit more of the road. It feels more sporty now. Still not completely uncomfortable, but not as soothing, let's say. Not I wouldn't say a long road trip. Let's change it to track. Now the cool thing about track is that this gauge, it completely changes, which it just gives you the RPMs and then what gear you're on and the miles per hour, which makes sense because when you're at the track, that's the only thing you need to know. Okay, so in track, I can feel everything. It completely transforms the car. Every single bump, every single crevice you feel, which I mean, again, it makes sense at the track. You want that harsh suspension. And even though I've driven this just a few times, and I'm so glad every single time I do, I can't even begin to imagine how this would be at the track. Just phenomenal. So I'm sticking with track mode because honestly, that's just my personal favorite, even though I wouldn't recommend it for a long road trip because it's not comfortable at all. But personally, me, I like feeling the car. I like feeling the road. Even when you put it in track mode, then the steering, it just feels more weighted, and I just like that. I like that feeling. So now let's test some body roll, even though I'm pretty sure that this car is just going to be exceptional. It's going to probably be little to no body roll because I can just feel with that harsh suspension. But let's just try it a bit and see how it feels. Okay, so for the body roll, let's try a little bit slow first and then let's do a little bit faster. Okay, so even slow, I barely feel anything. Let's do it a little bit more dramatic. This feels so awesome, guys. Do you understand how this would feel at the track? Like, I can just imagine this would be so good. This would be a dream. So let's do it one more time. Look at that responsiveness. Like I said, little to no body roll. One day, guys, one day I'll drive it at the track. All right, because I like it so much, one more time. It's like perfection right there. Perfection. So let's talk about visibility. So the only car that comes, at least that I've driven, that comes close to this is the Porsche GT3, because it has great visibility here in the front window and also in the rear. And this one, absolutely, I have no complaints. Great visibility here. It's very wide, it's very open. Side windows, the rear, I can see everything except when that wing goes up a little bit with the active arrow, but I mean, you still have plenty of space. And as a bonus, you can just look up and then you can see the sky too. So you have, even though it's not a sunroof, but you can still see up. So I think that's a nice touch. Like I said, visibility everywhere. I almost feel like I'm in a fishbowl. So no complaints with visibility. It's perfect. All right, so far everything has been great, but let's test braking. But before we do that, let me explain a little bit about how this car feels in terms of how the pedals feel, because it's kind of hard to explain unless you've been in one, unless you've driven one. So the pedals are all weighted, so you really have to put some strength into it. So you can't be lazy. Do not drive this car if you're feeling lazy. You really have to pull some strength into it. The closest that I can probably compare, and both, this is the brake and the accelerator, they kind of both feel like a clutch. That is at least the closest that I can compare it to. So even when I first got inside this car, I was a little bit like, okay, I really need to press that a little bit harder than usual with all my cars. But let's test now braking from 60 miles per hour. Oh, okay, I don't even need to explain. I mean, you guys saw this. Excellent. I mean, that brake bite, man, excellent. You know, this works. If last minute you need a brake, you know, these brakes are not gonna fail you, but be prepared because you're probably gonna eat this window right here. And you guys missed it. I wish you guys can see this right now with that active arrow, that wing. As soon as I press on those brakes, then that wing just shoots up, and then it also helps stops the car. But it feels great. I mean, everything about this car, you can feel everything. You can feel the road. You can hear the engine back here. You can feel really like when you're braking, like, I just love how connected I feel with this car, especially because I can see everything here. So 0 zero complaints so far. That braking was just phenomenal. I know this isn't like my usual DDrives like I've done before, where I take them to the mountains and these twisty, exciting roads, but it's just, I mean, it's a McLaren 720S. Yes, it's a great car and it would be so much fun to drive in the mountains and in those twisty roads, but it's also $300,000 and it's not my car. So I enjoy the experience of being able to drive it here. You know, I thank Corey for lending me this car and being able to just appreciate driving it here on the road. It's amazing in a straight line. It's just really fast, and because it's that fast, I really wouldn't want to take it in the mountains with the twisty roads, because, you know, just in case anything happens, I wouldn't want to. And it's not my car. I don't know it like that, but I already know it's amazing in a straight line on the roads, and on the track it's just perfection. You can feel the entire car. I mean, I've seen this car at the track. I've seen other people there take this car at the track, and it beats anything. It beats everything. It's just everything in this car was designed so well. So with that being said, let's go back to the house so I can give you my final thoughts of this car. All right, so now I'm back home, and remember when I told you guys that I drove a McLaren 570S? Just to tell you a little bit about that experience, let's just say that driving the 570S, it really didn't meet, at least it wasn't what I expected. Yes, it's a fast car, but it just didn't have that lasting impression. On the other hand, the 720S completely exceeded my expectations. I mean, for all of the reasons that I mentioned prior, I think it's a well-designed car. And this car is actually the replacement for Corey's Huracan that I drove pretty much, I think it was like a year ago. So I know you can't compare the two cars, but if I were to compare them in terms of looks, then I think they're pretty even. They both look good. I think it would just come down to preference on which car you think looks better. But the Huracan did get more looks. I have to admit that. I just think it's more of a streamlined look. This car also got some head turns, but when you open those doors, that's when it's like, wow, what is that? Let me go see that car. But I absolutely love it. I enjoy driving this car. I have nothing negative to say about it. So that's it for this DDrives. I'm not sure when I'll do another one because it's summer, it's really hot. So maybe once it cools down, I can get back to doing these types of videos. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.